Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.
The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
So I did listen to Nicole, and I decided I wanted to record an episode for you guys today. Anyway, hope you had a good weekend. Hope you enjoyed. If you got a chance to listen to the episode with Paul yesterday, I got a lot of feedback, which was awesome, actually. And the best was a buddy of mine was like, holy shit. I started out that episode thinking this guy was crazy. And by the end of it, I want to buy him a beer. I thought that was hilarious. And that's kind of perfect. Anyway, if you didn't get a chance to listen, put the Paul Davis episode 311. Reminds me of the band 311. Oh, amber is the color of your energy. Oh, that was their song. Remember that? Amber. Amber is the color of your energy, not Amber Emberlink, a.k.a. Amber Keene, a.k.a. married to Todd Keene. Wow, holy word association. Okay, anyway, seriously, it was a really good episode with Paul, and I think the general theme on the feedback I received was just that, man, he's really been through, I mean, a lot of people kept using the word awakening, and I'm not going to ruin it for those that didn't watch, but I will explain it a little and basically tell you why I think it is such a good episode. Is because this guy went from like participating in January 6th, in J6. And again, he wasn't disruptive or violent or anything, but he went there. So if you think about that, like I remember when I first met him and started talking, honestly, in my mind, I was like, holy shit, dude, who goes to that thing? That's crazy. Like, I don't even know if I really want to interview this guy. But he goes from being that all in on Trump and on MAGA and all of that. Now think about this, follow me, to not even voting for him this past election. How crazy is that? And because he went all in, and again, I'm not going to ruin it, but I will, share a couple tidbits. The dude lost his job, his career, his fiance, his house. So think about if he had never gone all in and never attended J6, he probably, obviously, his life would have had a completely different trajectory. But then the question becomes, and we're going to talk about this on the next episode, is would that have, I guess, awakened him to the place he is now, which again, for him is a much better place because, in his eyes, he totally sees the truth on both sides. And so he doesn't believe in the right-left paradigm. I mean, he truly does not believe in it. So I don't know. I think that's pretty amazing. And I think that's incredible for someone to have really that passionate of views that go from one extreme to the next, to where you participate in an event like January 6th, and then 4 years later, you don't even vote for Trump. That's pretty wild. That is pretty wild. All right. Anyway, if you didn't get a chance, it's the episode from Monday. Again, you can watch it. If you want to watch the video, you can watch the video on Spotify and YouTube. If you want just the audio, then everywhere else. And obviously the audio is on Spotify and YouTube as well. By the way, real quick, I have absolutely stepped up the deepshallowdive.com website. So now when you go to deepshallowdive.com, you have the ability I've got the guest interviews all separated nicely in the top navigation bar. There's a tab called guests, or a link. And then the health episodes, actually, because a lot of people asked me for that. So now there is a separate tab for all of the health episodes. I think there's 12 of them so far, but basically, if you go to the top navigation bar to health, you can click that and you can scroll down and you can see all the health episodes. They each have their own page, and there's an embedded audio player, and you can listen to it directly off the site if you like, or grab the episode number and find it on wherever you listen to your podcasts. And by the way, I've got a guy that I'm bringing on who's like a internet search engine optimization guru specialist. I mean, the kid's probably 15. No, he's not 15, but I think he is young. I think he's in his mid-20s. And he called me up and he's like, hey, I listened to your podcast and I really like it. And, I took a look at your website and, you're doing some major things wrong. And so I had him kind of talk me through what I was doing wrong, and I'm not going to ruin it, but it's going to be really cool. He's actually going to be a guy that, can maybe help us understand the inner workings of, Google and the algorithm, and then search engine optimization, and then how to build a website. I know a lot of you, might have your own website for your small business or mid-sized business, or maybe your hobby or whatever, or you're just interested in understanding kind of how this all works. So anyway, Brandon is going to be able to shed a lot of light on that. So that's going to be cool. But again, if you have never checked out deepshallowdive.com, definitely go there. I'm collecting emails there. Honestly, I haven't even done anything with the emails. I haven't sent anything out. I've got probably like a few thousand now, but I kind of am waiting to have a more organized plan of attack for sending you guys out email. But in the meantime, I would appreciate it if you just go there and pop in your email. And then again, if you want, you can check out the guests, you can check out the health, you can check out the shop. I've got, in addition to my books, there's some coffee mugs on there now. That's another cool little addition. So you can buy a Deep Shallow Dive coffee mug if you want that. But anyway, okay. All right, let's get into something that I posted about over the weekend. And honestly, it's pretty crazy because it's basically like nowhere on the news, and it involves another African country.
The recent assassination attempt on Burkina Faso's revolutionary leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, coupled with the audacious claims by US General Michael Langley that Traoré is misusing Burkina Faso's gold reserves, has ignited a fire in the hearts of Africans everywhere. From the bustling streets of Lagos to the vibrant markets of Accra, from the townships of Johannesburg to the diaspora hubs in London, Paris and New York, Africans are declaring, enough is enough. The West's relentless interference in our affairs, their plots to destabilize our leaders, and their arrogant assumption that they can dictate Africa's destiny must end. On April the 30th, 2025, Africans across the continent and beyond will stage a historic protest, the likes of which have not been seen in decades, to defend Captain Traoré, to demand respect for Africa's sovereignty, and to send a resounding message. If you touch Traoré, you touch all of Africa. The assassination attempt on Captain Traoré, reported just weeks ago, was not just an attack on one man, it was an assault on the aspirations of a continent. Traoré, the 37-year-old interim president of Burkina Faso, has become a beacon of hope for millions of Africans who are tired of neo-colonialism, tired of puppet leaders, and tired of watching their resources plundered while their people languish in poverty. The plot, allegedly orchestrated from Ivory Coast with ties to Western intelligence.
All right, so this is crazy for so many reasons. First of all, the country is called Burkina Faso. And I am not going to lie, I have never heard of this country ever before. Have you? Have you guys heard of Burkina Faso? I know some of the international listeners probably have, but honestly, I would seriously put money on any red-blooded American, and if we asked them what is Burkina Faso, they would probably think it was, I don't know, man, some type of vodka or maybe some type of pasta or something. But I had no idea where this country is. It is basically in the top left part of Africa. And this guy, this leader, Ibrahim Traoré, he basically he has been attempted to be assassinated 18 times since 2022. How crazy is that? 18 times since 2022. But then I started seeing a bunch of things on this on Instagram. And so this dude is like a 37-year-old military leader. He took power via a coup in 2022. And And here's where it gets interesting. So he's totally anti-colonial, which obviously makes sense, meaning he doesn't want the West to like butt their noses into things. And in this case, when he's referring to the West, it's primarily France. It looks like France is the one that is basically the colonial state that is trying to again pillage this African country, which makes sense because I think the French have done that to African countries for centuries. But so he's anti-colonial, anti-West, pro-Africa. And so the question becomes, why was he targeted? And he was targeted because he did a couple of things. One is after taking power, he expelled the French troops that were there. And then here's the second one, which is a big one, is he is aligned with Russia. So there's videos of him and Putin. I don't know if Putin recently visited there, but Putin is definitely supporting this guy. And then third, and this is what they are going after him for, is they said he is stealing the gold resources. Now, according to obviously their side, he basically took control of their gold resources from the French. So this is crazy. I mean, we don't really pay attention to, we don't pay attention to what's going on in Canada or Mexico, let alone in Africa. But obviously, I think other places around the world, and especially countries in Europe, and, friends of mine in Europe, I think they pay a lot more attention to what's going on in all these different countries. And so this is definitely kind of an uprising that is taking place. And it seems like the Pan-African countries are collectively maybe rallying around this guy. Now, I'll have to do a little bit more research, but listen to this speech he just gave.
They always take examples. They will tell us, Thomas Sankara tried to do it like this, but where is he? He is dead. The Haitian president, he tried to do it like this. Where is he? He is dead. Gaddafi tried like this. Where is he? He is dead. These are the veiled statements made to us to instill fear. If we remain in this posture of fear, we will be cowards, and history will judge us. Our children will ask questions. Our grandchildren will ask questions. We are writing history. There is no room for cowardice.
Man, Gaddafi is coming up a lot these days. It's pretty interesting. I'm going to take full credit for all of that globally based on my podcast episode on him. Anyway, so he talked about how, this Thomas Sankara, I didn't really know who that was, but he stood up and resisted. He's dead. The Haitian president, Jovenel Moise. This is the guy actually Professor Jeffrey Sachs, I think, talked about in one of the clips. I'll try to pull it and play it again. But he spoke up against Western colonialism. He's dead. Obviously, Muammar Gaddafi, we've talked about that, several times in terms of, what he was trying to accomplish, which basically was to replace the petrodollar with the dinar. And then again, rally the Pan-African countries to basically stop being, I guess, so reliant on the West, but also so controlled on the West. And so we know what happened there. That was Hillary Clinton convincing Obama to basically kill Gaddafi. And so he's dead. So anyway, this guy's making it clear, man. He's got a set of cojones on him for sure. And instead of backing off, he's leaning in and like unapologetically hard and trying to he's really trying to rally these African countries because, these African countries, by the simple fact that I had never even heard of Burkina Faso before, obviously by themselves, I don't really think they're able to do much. But collectively, if they were to join together,
What if all Arab countries united into one massive superstate? Here's what would happen. Number one, The merge. 22 countries, from Morocco to Iraq, ditch their borders, creating one giant Arab super country with a unified army, government, and currency. Number 2, global economic powerhouse. With 450 million people and a combined GDP of over $3 trillion, this country would rival the biggest economies on Earth, like China, the US, and the EU. Number 3, oil and energy dominance. Control over nearly half of the world's oil and gas reserves means massive energy exports. Number 4, military strength. With the combined forces of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Algeria, and Iraq, this new superstate would have one of the largest armies in the world. Number 5, infrastructure and trade. From the Suez Canal to the Gulf ports, they'd control critical trade routes, connecting East and West. Would this be the future of the Arab world?
All right, so basically, I mean, if all of those Arab, now they said Arab, but I don't know if that was, oh, maybe that was not including the African countries. Hold on, let me see what countries they were considering. All right, you know what? That was actually more Arab-oriented countries and not necessarily all of the African countries. But man, imagine if all those Arab countries and African countries got together. That would be massive. Now, let me talk about this GDP, gross domestic product, a little bit, because when it said if they got together and it was going to be 3 trillion, that sounded a little bit low. I think the United States and China is much less. So let's hit up our boy ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, can you explain what GDP means? And it said, yes, GDP stands for gross domestic product. It's the total dollar value of all goods and services produced within a country's borders over a specific time period, usually a year or a quarter. Think of it as the country's economic scorecard. Okay, so it includes consumer spending, the stuff people buy, business investments, equipment, buildings, etc. Government spending, well, that's probably a big one, on defense, roads, and schools, and then net exports. Exports minus imports. This is probably where Trump's trying to improve with all of his tariff stuff. And so then it says, when GDP goes up, the economy is generally growing. When GDP goes down, it might signal a slowdown or even a recession. Okay, that is all good to know. Now, I then asked it, I said, can you tell me the top 10 countries in terms of GDP? And so here they are. As of 2025, the top 10 countries by nominal gross domestic product are the United States, number 1, 30.51 trillion. China, number 2, 19.23 trillion. So China's, the United States is still 2/3 larger than China. So 30 trillion to 19.23. Number 3, we drop all the way to 4.74 trillion. Can you guess who that is? Bueller. Okay, Germany. Germany's number 3 at 4.74 trillion. Number 4 is India, dots, not feathers, at 4.19 trillion. Obviously, feathers don't exist anymore. And then, or they exist, but not as a country. And then number 5 is Japan at 4.19 trillion. So it looks like India and Japan, think about that. India and Japan have the same GDP. Let me get the population difference. Hey, ChatGPT, can you jump on the podcast real quick?
I wish I could, but I can't join live podcasts. If there's anything I can help you prep for or any content you want to brainstorm, I'm here for that.
Okay, yeah. Can you just tell me what is the population difference between Japan and India?
Absolutely. As of the latest estimates, India has a population of around 1.4 billion people, while Japan's population is roughly 125 million. So the difference is about 1.275 billion people. India's population is significantly larger than Japan's.
Wow, so it sounds like Japan's only 10% of India's population, but then correct me if I'm wrong, they have a very similar gross domestic product, GDP, for 2025. Can you look that up? Oh, wow.
As of 2025, both Japan and India have a GDP of around $4.19 trillion. Despite Japan's population being only about 10% of India's, their economies are currently neck and neck in terms of total output. However, India is projected to surpass Japan soon, reflecting its rapid economic growth.
Oh, well, that is wakare matsa, Anji-san.
Haha, you got it. It's a wild ride seeing how different factors shape economies. Anything else you want to dive into?
No, that's it. And by the way, I literally just recorded you on the podcast, so you can go live with me. I kind of tricked you.
Haha, well played. Glad to be part of your podcast, even if it's a bit sneaky. Let's keep the audience entertained and informed.
Okay. All right, buddy. Sounds good. Have a good night. Seriously, that shit is funny to me. And by the way, that is the voice. What do they call that? Hold on, let me ask them. All right, I didn't need to play that for you because I am going to bring them on. So they just call it voice chat or voice conversation. And so for those of you that have jumped into the ChatGPT world, I have gotten a few responses from actually a bunch of people are like, dude, I use it for everything. But I will say everybody has kind of echoed what I said last week in don't let it make you too dumb. Seriously, like things like certain things, obviously try to just be very engaged with it. I think if you're very engaged with it, you can leverage it for just all benefit. But again, as with other technologies such as the backup camera and many other things, it is dumbing us down a little bit. But it's funny, ever since I talked about that last week, I forget what episode, I'm much more cognizant of it. I'm much more cognizant actually of my use of technology. Like the other day, believe it or not, I was driving and I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to plug in my phone for my CarPlay. I'm just going to get home by myself. How pathetic is that? But I did do that. And so again, just be cognizant of that technology. So that is called voice chat. And for those of you that use ChatGPT, it should be a little black circle with four lines that are like different sizes. And it's going to be in the bottom right of your cell phone if you're using ChatGPT on your phone. You know, it doesn't work on a lot of browsers, but it definitely seems to work on all aspects of the phone. By the way, another thing, I did have another friend ask me, they said, hey, I really want to get into this ChatGPT stuff. Do I have to pay for it? And that answer is absolutely no, you don't. So you really can leverage the free version of ChatGPT. Honestly, unless you're really using it for, tremendous amounts of work-related things, you really don't need to pay for it. You definitely don't need to pay for it. And I would highly recommend not paying for it. Save yourself $20 a month. I promise you, you can get what you need from the free version of ChatGPT, and then also Gemini, Claude, Perplexity. All those have paid versions that are $20 a month, basically. But again, you can start out with absolutely just using the free versions. Okay, let's get back into GDP. So again, 4 and 5 was a tie, India and Japan, with Japan having literally 10% of the population of India. That's wild at 4.19 trillion. Next, you've got the United Kingdom at 3.83 trillion. I'm going to bring ChatGPT on really quick. Hold on, let me ask him something. Hey, ChatGPT, I got you back on really quick. Hey, can you tell us the difference between the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and then, I guess we know what England is, but we use those terms interchangeably, but they're really not, right? So can you tell us what comprises the United Kingdom, what is Great Britain, and then I guess we can have England as a country by itself, right?
Sure thing. It can definitely get confusing, so let's break it down. England is a country that's part of a bigger political entity. It's located on the island of Great Britain. Great Britain is the name of the island that comprises 3 countries, England, Scotland, and Wales. So when you say Great Britain, you're referring to these 3 together. The United Kingdom is a sovereign state that includes 4 countries, England, Scotland, Wales, all on the island of Great Britain, and Northern Ireland, which is located on the island of Ireland. So in short, England, just one country, United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. People often mix these terms up, but each one has its own specific meaning.
Okay, and then what about Ireland? That's not part of any of that?
Right, exactly. Ireland and Northern Ireland are distinct. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, along with England, Scotland, and Wales. The Republic of Ireland, often just called Ireland, is a completely separate independent country that is not part of the United Kingdom. The island of Ireland is split into these two entities, the Republic of Ireland in the south and Northern Ireland in the north. So, when talking about the UK, it's those four: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The Republic of Ireland stands on its own.
Got it. Do you think I could beat up Conor McGregor?
Well, Conor McGregor is a former UFC champ and a trained fighter, so it's safe to say he's got the upper hand in a physical bout. But hey, unless you've been secretly training like a beast, it might be a tough matchup.
Okay, good call. Good call. All right, buddy. Thank you.
Anytime. Take it easy.
Why do I feel like ChatGPT is totally rolling his eyes right now? He's probably rolling his eyes and he's like, this dude, what a knucklehead. Okay, anyway, so that was interesting. I always get those confused. So now we know that when people say United Kingdom, we're talking about four entities: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And then when people say Great Britain, we're talking about three entities: England, Scotland, and Wales. And so then obviously England is just the country. You know, I feel like most of the time when people say United Kingdom, or they say like, oh, I'm going over to the UK, you're not. You're probably going to England. You're going to London. All right. Good learning. Good learning. Okay. So United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland comes in at number 6, 3.83 trillion. France, number 7, 3.21 trillion. Italy, number 8, 2.42 trillion. Canada, number 9, 2.23 trillion. And then Brazil, number 10, 2.13. So anyway, that is interesting. I mean, obviously, that also puts in perspective, again, just how big the United States is. So we're at 30 trillion, and then number 10, Brazil, is 2 trillion. So, you know, this probably plays into Trump's tariff battle, I guess, negotiations in terms of, you know, really feeling like he's got the leverage on pretty much all of these guys. Now, maybe not China at 19.23. You know, let me ask him what Russia's GDP is. I'm surprised it didn't say Russia. And let's see what Iran's is as well. Hold on. All right, so the Russia GDP is 2.2 trillion. So they're basically right there, you know, maybe number 11 or something like that. Iran is 463 billion. Okay, so I mean, that's 25% of Russia. And then Saudi Arabia is 1.14 trillion. So that obviously is also like half of Russia. Well, a little more than half of Russia, but obviously Saudi Arabia's economy, I mean, it's pretty much based on oil. So is Iran's for the most part, I think. Now, the interesting number for Iran is it says, despite facing international sanctions, Iran's economy has experienced growth, partly due to increased oil exports and strengthened ties with countries like China and Russia. Okay. Anyway, you know, it is interesting to put the size of these countries economically in perspective a little bit. And again, I mean, obviously, you know, the United States is the big kahuna. We're the big kahuna at 30 trillion. But, you know, if these other countries team up, I mean, I think that's where the problem could emerge. Now, maybe in another episode, I'll bring ChatGPT on and we'll try to determine the size of the military. Yeah, that'll be fun. Actually, we'll try to determine the size of the biggest militaries in the world, and then see how that relates to the size of their financial prowess. Okay, what else did I want to talk real quick? Oh, you know what? I've got to do this. I've got to give her her due, because that's what we do here at the Deep Shallow Dive. We judge the take and we call a spade a spade. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, MGT, the blonde hair Barbie. Well, I don't really think she's a Barbie. She's a pretty masculine Barbie. Anyway, the fireball that maybe gosh, a month ago, if you remember, I played that clip of her where she was chastising the British reporter and is like, I'm not answering your question. You're not an American, blah, blah, blah. And I've been pretty critical of her because I do kind of find her a knucklehead. Now, I did like her takes during COVID, and also I did like her pressure on Dr. Fauci. I did enjoy those, but overall I find her pretty low class, to be honest with you, and kind of a knucklehead. But I'm going to give her due. I'm actually going to give her double due, because last week she texted this. She said, "I represent the base, and when I'm frustrated and upset over the direction of things, you better be clear, the base is not happy. I campaigned for no more foreign wars, and now we're supposedly on the verge of going to war with Iran. I don't think we should be bombing foreign countries on behalf of other foreign countries, especially when they have their own nuclear weapons and massive military strength. Didn't we learn our lesson when we went to war in Iraq and killed Saddam Hussein because of, quote, weapons of mass destruction, unquote? Did we ever find any? No. And did any of that oil over in the Middle East make us rich? The answer again is no. And we are $36 trillion in debt today." Man, that was legit by her. That was a legit, absolutely legit tweet she put out. And again, just to analyze it real quick, I mean, she's calling out Israel for sure, but she's also calling out Trump a little bit. And she is like one of the diehard Trumpers. I mean, that is pretty impressive that she did this. You know, Thomas Massey, the guy that I've talked about a lot, who I really like, and who is really the one that, quite frankly, the only Republican that ever calls out anything on Trump. You know, he jumped in on this tweet and supported her. But this was very interesting and very surprising from Marjorie Taylor Greene to really have the guts to put this on Twitter. And again, I mean, when it's on Twitter, it goes everywhere. You know, I also thought it was interesting. She said, "I don't think we should be bombing foreign countries on behalf of other foreign countries, especially when they have their own nuclear weapons and massive military strength." Now, it is not, I guess, well, it's kind of well known, but it's not totally admitted in the public that Israel has nuclear weapons, even though they absolutely do. But it's kind of like the hidden secret that nobody really talks about. So that was pretty ballsy of her to say that as well. So I'll be curious if she catches any flack for this. Now, she then, this is pretty crazy. Then yesterday, so in the House of Representatives, they were supposed to vote on Monday on something called HR 867. And it's basically referred to as the IGO Anti-Boycott Act. And it's sponsored by a guy named Representative Mike Lawler. So let me read this from Dropsite News. That's another good account I like to follow. It's the former guys, I think, from The Intercept, Ryan Grimm, and then Jeremy Scahill. They now have their own entity called Dropsite News. So this is what they wrote. They said, "The House is set to vote Monday on HR 867, the IGO Anti-Boycott Act, which would punish Americans with fines of up to $1 million or prison terms up to 20 years for participating in boycotts of Israel or Israeli settlements that are promoted by international government organizations," IGOs, that's what those are, "such as the UN or the EU. The bill, sponsored by pro-Israel lawmaker Representative Mike Lawler, expands U.S. anti-boycott law to target voluntarily values-based political actions by U.S. citizens. Its aim is to shield Israel from non-violent international pressure campaigns such as BDS. BDS is that boycott, divestiture, and sanctions. If you remember, Elijah Kallenberg explained that pretty well. It said, rights groups say the legislation criminalizes constitutionally protected political expression and is part of a broader push to suppress opposition to Israeli genocide, apartheid, and illegal settlement expansion in Gaza and the West Bank under the guise of fighting anti-Semitism. Anyway, this thing was a absolute firestorm on social media. I mean, absolute firestorm. And so again, Marjorie Taylor Greene on Monday, she tweeted this out. She said, "I will be voting no. It is my job to defend Americans' right to buy or boycott whomever they choose without the government harshly fining them or imprisoning them. But what I don't understand is why we are voting on a bill on behalf of other countries and not the president's executive orders that are for our country." And she went all caps on "for our country." Obviously, you know, when it's all caps, it's all business. Anyway, I mean, this has honestly thrown an entire wrench into my thought process on things related to Trump. And again, I'm not ready to give him any credit of playing four-dimensional chess. But again, I am very surprised. Honestly, I'm very surprised that of all the Republicans to say this, Marjorie Taylor Greene is kind of one of the top Trump worshipers. And so I'm a little surprised she said this. So that stuff, I guess, sets off my spidey senses, and it makes me think, you know, she okayed it with Trump before tweeting this. And so I don't know, man. I don't know. That was interesting. So along those lines, the last thing I wanted to talk about, because man, we're already at 36 minutes, is so Trump fired his first cabinet member over the weekend. And it was the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. Now, this is the guy that was at the center of that Signalgate situation. Remember, we talked about this, where he added a Atlantic journalist to the WhatsApp group, and then like they were talking about bombing Yemen and the Houthis and all that. So Mike Waltz was the guy that basically kind of got blamed for that, him along with Pete Hegseth. And this guy's kind of a dipshit to begin with, and he is a knucklehead. But so it says Trump fires Mike Waltz. And then there's a quote. I don't know if this is directly from Trump, but he said, "I fired him because he was plotting with Israel behind my back." So the back channel was that supposedly Waltz had unauthorized talks with Benjamin Netanyahu. Waltz reportedly coordinated with Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu to push for military action against Iran without Trump's approval. Trump prefers diplomacy over military strikes. This clandestine coordination is what got him fired. And then it says the fallout, the power shuffle. Trump replaced Waltz with Secretary of State Marco Rubio as acting national security advisor. Now, this is where it's funny to me. So he fires him from that position, but then he says Waltz has now been nominated as the U.S. ambassador to the UN. So now they moved him into the ambassador to the UN role, which had been given to that Elise Stefanik gal, but then they took her out of that because they're realizing they're losing their what do you call it? Oh my God, I'm blanking on the word. They're losing their advantage in terms of the members in the House. And so Stefanik is a member of the House. I was thinking of the majority. So by letting her become the U.S. ambassador to the UN, I guess there was risk of then losing that seat. So the Republicans would start to lose the majority that they have in the House, because right now they've got a majority. They've got a majority in the House and the Senate, and it feels like nothing is really getting done besides maybe some border control. That's interesting, man. That's interesting. They always talk about how when as a government unit, when you've got all three branches, you pretty much can do whatever you want. And so like it begs the question, why are we in such turmoil right now? You know, seriously, why are we in such turmoil right now? I will tell you, Paul Davis thinks there's a much bigger play here, and he definitely thinks Trump is part of it and part of this whole New World Order stuff, this one government. Man, that's a stretch, man. Actually, it's not a stretch, but man, that's a big topic. Anyway, I am going to record with him again and have him take us through all that, and like also go through a lot of these, a lot of the stuff, like, I don't really know what Freemasonry is, like the Freemasons. I mean, I kind of know what the Illuminati is. I know what, like, the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations. Actually, I've heard all these terms and I have a working knowledge of it, but I don't have a deep dive in it or even a deep shallow dive in it. So anyway, Paul will play that role for us. All right, that is it. Hold on. Let me see if I have anything else. You know what? I'm going to take us out on a positive note. So this was a video I found on Instagram, and it's basically a guy interviewing two guys that just finished like a marathon or something. And this guy speaking, his name is Mike Pigg. I mean, crazy last name. But I loved what he said, because he basically lost. And then the reporter was like, "You've got to be disappointed." And so listen to his answer. I think it's amazing. And I think it does three things. One, it gives himself credit because he says, "I ran the best race of my life." Two, he absolutely gives his opponent who beat him credit, calls him a great athlete, and says the most important part of it to me, which was he's faster right now. And so in one quote, he gives himself credit, he compliments his opponent, and he sets a goal because he says he's faster right now. So you can tell that his mindset is, okay, that's cool. I set my personal best. I ran my best race ever. Mike is just better, or whatever the guy's name is just better right now. Anyway, enjoy this. Mike Pigg.
Mike Pigg, heck of a race with Mark Allen all the way. How do you feel about it?
All right, feel real good. Had a fast run, fastest of the season. Still need to catch my breath.
You got to be a little bit disappointed at the end, though.
Why? Had the best race of my life, so why would I be disappointed? Mark's just faster right now. He's an excellent athlete.
All right, I got to jump back real quick because it was a little hard here. He said, "You got to be a little disappointed at the end." And then he goes, "Why? Why would I be disappointed? I ran the best race of my life. Mark is just faster right now. He's an excellent athlete." All right, call a spade a spade.
That was a great way to end it.
This episode was brought to you by the new book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You, available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hardcover and paperback. Don't forget to sign up for our new mailing list on our website at deepshallowdive.com.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.